I'm so happy you found Virago 24/7. If you love this podcast, please go to wherever you're listening and rate the show. 5 stars would be very much appreciated. I wouldn't mind a review as well. And also, don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. Today's show is sponsored by the Healing Life Institute, where they're passionate about your personal growth and healing. They offer support and guidance to help you discover your inner strength and move into a more authentic and vibrant way of living. Go to healinglifeinstitute.org and enter promo code Virago10 for 10% off services. Hi, I am your host, Leonette Talley, and you are listening to Virago 24/7. Virago is Latin for female warrior, and 24/7 is for all day, every day. Virago 24/7 is a weekly podcast that brings diverse women together to talk about life and our experiences in this world. We share our views on self-love, mental health, marriage, children, friendships, and really anything that needs to be talked about. Here, you will find everyday growth, everyday healing with everyday warriors. Just give me my space to move. 'Cause it's my thoughts, what I want, and I want what I want. Hey, I want to welcome today 2 women that you've already heard on previous shows. We have Bridgette Morris from the Healing Life Institute. She's back with us. Hello, Brit.
Hello, how are you guys today?
Wonderful. And we have Jenna Walston. She's been on a few shows as well. And I want to welcome Jenna.
Thank you for having me.
So we're just here today to talk about trauma, childhood trauma, and how that affects us as adults, as women, as we get older, or men, because I know men are listening to this too. So I want to let Britt take over because I feel like I'm not going to say a whole lot during this show. So Jenna's here to tell her story, and Britt is going to be here to give us tools to help us and guide us. Because I read that we can change that trauma in the brain. We can change, we can heal is what I've read, that it's possible.
Exactly. And so, so we'll talk, what I'd love to talk about is really the emotional wellness part of it, because where we are in, the therapeutic world, it's just a great time right now because there's a lot of research that is teaching us that we can regulate our emotions, we can be very mindful and change the way that our brain works. So that's just really exciting. And so what, really my specialty is I really help people create healthy relationships. Key is you have to learn how to have that healthy relationship with yourself, and why that's so critical to just understand, y'all know that little voice that I always say, so who do you talk to the most, Leonette? Who do you talk to the most in the day?
Besides myself? Because I talk to myself a lot.
Okay, so who do you talk to? Well, that was the right answer.
Oh, okay.
Well, most people will think and say, well, my mom or my best friend.
I definitely talk to myself a lot, where my kids are like, who are you talking to? I'm like, because I'll say it out loud. I'll talk to myself out loud.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm just talking to myself.
Right. And you feel this, that's who we talk to the most, right?
100%.
Yeah, so I always say it's me, myself, and I.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I love all 3 of them.
Yeah, all of us. Exactly. And we have a good time, too.
Exactly. And so why that's so key is to know that inner voice is emotionally, while we're growing up, we have emotional stages of development. Just like physically, we have physical stages of development. So we remember, with our children, they had to learn to roll over, crawl, and then walk, and then run. Well, we have those same things as children. So 18 years and younger, we're hitting 5 stages of development emotionally. And do y'all know what question we're answering during that time? So when I'm 18 and younger, I'm emotionally answering a question I'm either going to learn the healthy version or the unhealthy version of it.
We're answering
self-esteem, who I am.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yay! Okay.
Yeah.
That was perfect. Yay! Y'all are in the head of the class.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so you're wondering, you're learning who am I? So your family of origin plays such a key role in modeling that. Your friend group, your culture, your school environment, what you watch on TV, like all of those things play such a key role, because what ends up happening is, like I said, you're either you go past the stage. Like if you get the stage, then you move ahead, and then you move ahead. So 18 and younger, you're learning really how you interact, like how you feel about yourself. So you either get stuck in this thing that we call role confusion, where I think, we were all talking beforehand, I know I'm a recovering rescuer pleaser, because that was modeled to me not only in my family of origin to be that rescuer and that pleaser and that helper, but also in my religious background, told me in that. So that's not the healthy version. So how do you, and basically it's how do you handle conflict? So you can either be an avoider, a pleaser, the victim, the persecutor.
I think I've been all of them at one point in my life.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, and they say that we attach our identity to one in particular, and then we orbit around that. And basically everyone pretty much ends up the victim. That's that poor me, where you're like, oh, why'd I do this? Why'd I do that? So do y'all know what the healthy version of emotionally growing up 18 and younger, if we're knowing like, okay, I used to be a pleaser, what do you think that would be?
Is it being a champion, or is that something different?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I've done a lot of therapy with Britt.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're learning so much. I'm so glad you have her on the show.
I mean, for me, I don't know if that's the word that you use, but just like how you were talking before we got on the mic, Jenna was sharing a story about her son and how, he's able to be strong in who he is, but understand, okay, I made a mistake, and this is what I was feeling, and I apologize. I'm not going to make excuses for myself. And he's fine. It's like, it's not the end of the world. But I think if you don't have those tools, you're always trying to like scheme or manipulate, or, just have these other
defenses kick in.
Yeah.
Too,
And I think if you're an emotionally healthy person, you don't need to be defensive.
Exactly. Because what ends up happening in that unhealthy version of like being the rescuer, or even the persecutor or the avoider, you're trying to control the environment because you don't want the pain to happen. And, it's not if I'm going to make a mistake, it's when, right? It's not if I'm going to be frustrated today, it's when. And so the key is, well, what do I do when I am? So if I jump into that, being the pleaser, it just doesn't serve you well. Like, because you're basically just not being really connected to the people. Or what happens is then you're rescuing. This is what I felt. This is kind of what passive aggressiveness is I'd keep giving in. And then finally, I'd ask for one thing and they wouldn't be able to accommodate me. And then I'd be like, ah! And they'd be like, who is this? I was like, okay, that's being passive aggressive.
Yes, yeah.
Did y'all ever do that?
I can so identify with that.
Yeah.
And with my children especially, our latest is bedtimes.
Yeah.
I ask one thing of you all, just one, and I do all this for you.
Exactly.
And that's passive aggressive and not very helpful.
Exactly.
So.
I resemble that comment, or I used to. So I've worked really hard. So that's the exciting thing is we really can retrain our brain and choose to say it's self-awareness. And so the healthy version, they call it intrinsic value, which what I believe that means is I know who I am. I know my strengths, my weaknesses, I know my triggers and all that kind of stuff, and I know how to handle life. So, and with being that self-champion, I'll ask you guys this, like, do you think that you can hold frustration and peace of mind at the same time?
I believe it's possible because of the work I've been doing.
Before that, possible.
No, I would not.
I agree with Jenna. I think before it didn't go hand in hand, but now I can be frustrated and still have, it's weird. It's hard to describe.
To find a balance maybe.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm frustrated, but I'm understanding my emotions.
And why I'm frustrated.
But I'm not going to freak out because I know it's just a temporary feeling. What can I do to, to overcome this feeling? I mean, overcome might be a big word, but it's very possible to be both, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Well, and it definitely is. So yeah, so the neat thing with that is then when you learn that, like, who am I? Then do y'all know what question we're asking ourselves 20 through 40?
I think for me, I don't know if this is the right answer, but once you find out who you are, and it's like, okay, so what's my purpose in interacting with people? Like, what is my mission?
Right.
Being here.
Right.
And interacting with people and having relationships with them. And like, what do I do with that? Now that I know who I am, what do I do with this energy? So,
I feel like it becomes very goal-driven during those years.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's how do I love?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Which, however, I love your answer because that goes to our culture. Because what does our culture tell us? Are we human beings or human doings?
Human doings.
Oh, definitely human doings,
Yeah, and
You
it's
have to
all
check
this,
all the boxes.
exactly.
Go down.
And that's just not healthy. That keeps you stuck in that conflict circle. I remember this story. It broke my heart, but I remember my son. He's 22 now, but he was second grade.
Okay.
And I loved how he sang. He was just like the best little singer, and I'd be like, you can sing. So I pick him up one day from school and he's like, Mom, you know how you tell me I'm a really good singer? And I was like, well, yeah. He goes, I'm not. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And so their little second grade class had like 30 boys. They had them try out for the boys like choir of Atlanta, and they picked one boy.
Oh no.
And so he was like, I can't sing, which went into that. And so then he wouldn't sing for a while. And I think our culture kind of does, our culture is extremely performance based. And that's one of the things that I was grateful that I kind of just learned through my son's teen years is I just kind of dropped that. Like, it wasn't where he's going to school or what he's doing. It was just enjoying those moments.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's why I've had such success with Jaden is because I feel exactly what you're feeling. Like, why even do that to those boys if you're only picking one?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, why? I agree with you on that one. And Jaden, when people would be like, oh, what are you going to do? He's 14.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's going to play lacrosse today.
Exactly.
And eat a healthy meal, hopefully, and love on others. And
that is so true. People will want to ask, okay, so now he's at this school. So what's he going to do for high school and college? I'm like, okay, he's in middle school. I literally tell people I take it year by year.
Yeah.
This year, he's at this school. He's playing soccer. He likes football. Next year, we will figure it out. He may not be interested in these things. The school that he's at may not be the best for him.
Such a healthy approach.
But I've had to learn that because you do start getting in your head when people are asking you stuff. It's like, should I know these things? Because I'm not really prepared for the future because I'm not really thinking that way. So I've just learned to shut out the noise. And my thought process is so different because I'm very a traditional, this is the way things are done. And this is it. And so in the past few years, I'm thinking, okay, it doesn't have to be done that way. And, my oldest might be going to SCAD, but maybe she might hate it, 2 years in. So I don't know, like we can't. And I try not to put that pressure on my kids either.
Yes. Well, I love that you do that.
Because my youngest, she's like, what do you think I should be when I grow up? I'm like, you're 10. Let's enjoy being 10. Let's have fun. Because what you feel now, you may not feel when you're older, or what you like now, you may not like.
And that's
okay.
Not to worry about.
Yeah, and that's what I try to tell her.
It's okay to dream and
have
lovely
aspirations,
dreams,
but she wants to know. And well, these people are talent, like going back to the whole talent thing. It's like, well, this person knows how to sing. And, with these little kids on YouTube and all that stuff, they see them. I'm like, well, just because they're doing that, and that's wonderful, let's cheer them on. It doesn't mean that you don't have that same talent. You're just maybe not prepared to do it right now in your life. Maybe when you're 20 years old, you'll be a singer. I don't know.
Right.
Or an actor or whatever you want to be. So.
Well, and I love to tell children as they're growing up, I'm like, God planted special, talents in each of our hearts. This is what I believe, and go and find out, what makes you unique, what brings you joy, what makes you happy, and how you, can contribute to the people that you're around. Because that's really, if you go back to that 18 and younger, that intrinsic value being the self-champion is, it's like boundaries to me are, I know who I am. So when I show up in a situation, that's who I am. So I don't have to tell someone, don't speak to me this way. I already know, okay, if someone speaks to me this way, then I'm just going to thoughtfully and peacefully detach, or maybe I'm going to be curious. Well, why did you say that? Like, I've already decided that.
Yeah.
And if you can teach your children that, that's just so key, because
So much more important
it's
than
not
grades
cliquish, it's not, it's all of that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I feel like it's the structure of the home.
Yes.
Without emotional regulation or being able to respond without the anger or the guilt or the shame.
Yeah.
I feel like with that situation I was talking about with Jade, and I said, buddy, if you can keep this going, anywhere you go in life, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I'd love, you want to share that with the listeners? This is great.
So I was out of town over the weekend, and the sitter is very youthful and fun. And I do that intentionally because we don't have enough. We're trying to overcome a lot of structure, and I just want them to play and be youthful.
Right.
No more pressures. So I intentionally hire somebody youthful, but they were allowed to each have friends over. So there were 6 children at my house.
Okay.
And lacrosse balls were involved. Harming was involved. Hitting a car was involved. I didn't address it until I was able to, number one, without anger and frustration.
I love that.
And I had to make sure that legally I wasn't in any trouble and that the girl was okay and the car was okay. And then we finally talked about it last night.
Okay.
And this happened on Saturday. So, or actually it was Friday when it happened.
So you waited 4 days.
It was a few days ago. Yeah.
It was necessary.
Yes.
Because I needed a mental break. I went out of town with some family and just needed a mental break because I knew I needed to reset, because the week prior I was doing a lot of yelling, a lot of, why aren't you giving me what I need?
Right.
So I needed to reset. And I told them when I come back Monday, it's all going to be different.
Right.
I can do this. And I mentally helped myself over the weekend. So when we sat down, I said, hey, buddy, we got to talk about this situation. My daughter was involved also. They both sat there. They were both interrupting each other. I'm like, no, let's just listen to Jaden's perspective. And Jamie, then we're going to listen to your perspective.
Yeah.
And we're going to stop interrupting each other. And it was a process when you do it this. It's not a, what happened? And why didn't you? And all the ways we used to handle it before. Or, you don't think about the just a lot of shaming would go on in our home.
Yes.
So I wanted to set the tone differently, and I did it, and it was successful.
Aww.
But what I was the most proud of, not just me, was my 14-year-old son in particular. I said, buddy, tell me what happened. And he was calm, cool, collective, explained everything, explained the emotions behind it. I was scared when they went by, and they had music on, they were yelling, and they were big guys.
Right.
So we talked about fight or flight.
Yes.
And he did both.
Yes.
He threw a lacrosse ball and then he went and hid in the basement.
Yeah, so I say you put on your punchy gloves, and then you put on your running shoes.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not a healthy way to handle conflict.
Yeah.
So we even talked about fight or flight and how you felt at that moment and what could you have done to make a better decision. And he just flat out said, you know what, Mom, I messed up. I don't know why I did it. You know, Jamie called me. She needed me to help her. So I was trying to protect her. And with the other boys that got a little carried away, who started to blame others, I'm like, no, we're just talking about you right now.
Right.
Only you. What was going on with you? And he admitted everything. Said I made a very poor decision, and I won't do it again, Mom. Like, I'm so thankful nothing horrible came out of it.
Right.
I stopped right then and there. I was like, buddy, let's just stop and fist pump. That's amazing that you can do that. Like, I'm just learning how to do this and not blame others or not get scared or not know what's going on with me. And with all the emotional regulation work we've been doing since October, it has paid off.
I love that.
And I feel like I'm sending a man out into this world who will be able to communicate and listen and see different perspectives and not interrupt. And most importantly, take responsibility.
Absolutely. No, and I love, that's so perfect. And you're also teaching him, which I know you're saying this, but you're teaching him how to handle issues.
Yeah.
And how to handle issues with other people where you're going to seek their perspective. So that's how teams work. And that's just wisdom. And so I like to say that, you know, there are 2 ways that we can handle conflict. And so we are going to get triggered and go into that fight or flight. However, I love how you called that timeout. Like, that's what any good football team does. When the game starts to get away from them, they just call a timeout. And they're like, let me reassess. So that took a lot of wisdom.
Well, I love Jenna. So I want to get into like some of your story and your childhood trauma and story, because
we're talking about this and how we're doing it with our children in a healthy way. But we've had a journey to get to where we are, where we're understanding like the emotional, for me, with my kids, the emotional aspect of their lives is more important than anything right now, is what I'm discovering. More important than academics. Like before, like I said, I was very traditional and very like academic driven. And so that's why my oldest is so type A. And I'm like, I'm so sorry I did that to you. Because I'm the way I'm thinking has shifted with my younger kids. And so I want to get into that because people can listen to this and like, oh, well, they just have it all together. But that's not true.
No.
We've had to put in work. We've had to talk to ourselves so many times and have so many conversations within ourselves to even understand and realize this. So I want to get into you, Jenna, because you have a story that some people have trauma in their childhood and use that as an excuse. Well, this happened to me and this is the way I am. And they're just stuck in their ways. But you, on the other hand, you are trying to do better and be better for your kids and not use that as an excuse.
Absolutely.
So where would you like to start?
I'm not doing all this work just for my children. I mean, it's because I'm having to undo the years of what I have done to them because of my childhood trauma.
Right.
And my lack of being able to emotionally regulate. So instead of blaming and playing the victim at this point, I'm taking responsibility. Why did I end up in the situation I'm in? What has caused it? And when people know about your childhood trauma, a lot of times they'll use it against you. Like,
yes,
I'm not the problem, your childhood is, or
you're damaged.
You need to get over that shit, to be able to. There's a lot of truth to that. There is a lot of truth to that, but there's where the shame comes in and
correct.
All the things that I accept because of my childhood trauma. So where my childhood trauma started, I normally start with when I was 11, but I'm going to back it up for the first time. It started when my parents divorced, I'm sure, because I was, if you asked my mom, I was 2. And if you asked my dad, I was 3. Who knows what the story is at this point. But that in itself had a huge impact on me.
Right.
Without a shadow of a doubt. So I would say it started there with divorce and my mom single parenting and having to handle 2 young children on her own.
Right.
With not a lot of means back then. Child support back then I think was $15 a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what year are we talking
So
about?
I was born in 72.
Okay.
My
70. What are you?
79.
Okay.
Go
We're all
70s.
70 babies.
That's
okay.
awesome. My sister was born in 70. We were, I think, like 22 months apart, very close in age. I'm not good with numbers and dates, and that has a lot to do with my trauma. I try to forget them because they don't matter, because I don't want to celebrate that day or mourn on that day. I just try to remember the emotions and what I learned from it.
Okay.
So moving forward, my mom was a single parent. She was involved with another gentleman who was an alcoholic and owned a bar and just put up with things. And I watched her put up with things that were so unhealthy because she was trying to save him. She didn't like what he was doing to himself and wanted to help him. And if I could just help him, he'll stop drinking. And ironically, she did. He went through AA treatment. He came out wonderful. He hasn't really drank since then. So I watched her be successful
Yes.
in it.
Yes.
Anybody in our neighborhood, any kid that needed something called my mom and showed up at our house.
Right.
She was the caretaker. Her dream in life was to work with mentally handicapped, disabled children.
Okay.
So she just had this in her.
Right.
She was a Girl Scout leader. She was just the people pleaser. Always fun to be around. Until she wasn't. We are New Yorkers, and boy, did she have a temper. But it took a lot to get there. So back in 83, my sister and I used to go to Girl Scout camp during the summer. And sadly, there was a big tragedy that year, and so many people were affected by it. It was world news. I'm going to pause because it's hard for me. Let me just have a glass of water.
That's fine.
But I'm okay with talking about it. It's just sometimes when you do it, it just brings it back, So long story short, we were at Girl Scout camp. and a horrible storm came in. And for the first time, we were in the same campsite because of our age. I used to be in the younger one and she'd be in the older one. So this year was big to me.
Yeah.
Like I was going to be in the same campsite as my big sister. And side note, my sister and I never argued. We had a beautiful relationship. My mom did a great job helping us with that.
Right.
Like, this is your sister. We never argued. And anybody who knew us, we never argued. We were a very supportive family, the three of us. So on the way to camp, there's 3 lean-tos at the campsite. There's one that sleeps 4, one that sleeps 4, and one that sleeps 8. So Jamie was like, I'm going into the 4-man with my friends. I'm like, no, we're in the 8-man, aren't we? We're finally together. And she was like, yeah, no, you're with your friends. And so my mom, as she dropped us off, she said, this is it. You both are going to have your friends and you're going to go to the 8-man lean-to. You had to hike in. So we were dropped off first so we could grab that 8-man lean-to before anybody else got there.
Right.
As soon as my mom pulled away, my sister looked at me and she was like, and she had legs up to my neck. I could not keep up with that chick. She's built like my dad. They're all very tall. I think she wore a size 13 shoe at the time and she was 12.
Oh, wow.
Right? She was very big. So she looked back and she was like, I'm grabbing the 4-man with the lake view. See ya. And she took off. And I just remember feeling abandoned at that time because she had never done that to me. Never hurt my feelings. Never not listened to my mother.
Right.
Like, you didn't mess with Big Lore because there were repercussions to pay. So I was in shock, kind of.
Right.
But along the way, I found my friend Kathy and my other friend Kathy, and we just made peace with it. It was what it was. But Jamie and I didn't really hang out or talk because she knew I was upset. And so we were there one night. The next day, a storm rolled in. We weren't there long at all. But we went to Project Core, and my sister's legs so big was leaning up against a tree. And I went over to her, and I sat in her legs. Like, that's how little I was compared to her. And we just hugged, and she kept telling me she was sorry, but she really wanted to be with her friends. And we made up, thank God, because 2 hours later, it was over. So the storm came in, lightning struck. It killed her best friend instantly, and she made it to the hospital. Coma, brain dead, had to pull the plug. It was horrible for my family. And even more so when we were at camp, the counselors are doing the best that they can because they had traumatized children. My cabin burned to the ground by the same lightning strike. And I had a burn on my leg from the same lightning strike that killed her. So I lost everything. I had nothing but the clothes that were on me. The storm was so bad. Hail was the size of golf balls. We were all bruised, trying to run away from the fire and everything, and sliding down the hill. Like, the memories are just, whew. So we're in the nurse's station. We see the ambulance go by. I'm like, cool. She's going to be okay. Ambulances are here. They fix everything.
Right.
And so the ambulance goes out. They move us to the little clubhouse areas, give us all little ices, and say, we've got good news and we've got bad news. Bad news is Denise has passed away. Good news is Jamie's doing well and she's in the hospital. So I was like, what? I can't wait to talk to her. What did it feel like to be struck by lightning? And oh my God, and couldn't wait. Like, it was joy for me, but everybody else, of course, was mourning Denise. And my grandfather shows up maybe 30 minutes after that. And he's like, where's all your stuff? I was like, this is all I have. I had shorts and a t-shirt on. I didn't even have shoes. It was it. I mean, I walked in with a huge backpack of all my favorite prized possessions, like Dave Winfield's jacket, number 31. I was a Yankees fan. That was gone. My headgear, which was so embarrassing, was gone. So I was thrilled about that. I was a kid and just thinking all the silly emotions.
Right.
So my grandfather picks me up and takes me to the hospital. And all of a sudden I realized it isn't what they said, It isn't good. I'm not going to be able to ask her questions. So the emotional trauma that I went through that day and also there was no counselors there. They went all to the boathouse and left us there. I don't know if they were drinking or what, but we had no one there to give CPR.
Oh, wow.
We were totally alone on this mountain.
Wow.
Yeah. So when we get to the hospital, they shove you in this little closet with all these toys and distract you, and everybody's being sweet. And my family was their family I hadn't seen in a long time. And so that night they decided I needed to go home because I think they were doing major testing at that point to see if there was any brain activity or if her organs were functioning. And so I went home. My great-grandmother was watching me, and I was alone on the news. And that's where I learned about everything, was from the news.
Really?
I was a wood-burning girl. I had a wood-burning kit, and I had made a little plaque that was 2x4. And it said Jamie Sue. And it took up the whole TV screen, the wood-burning thing that I had made her.
Yeah.
And we weren't allowed to watch the news, but my great-grandmother had fallen asleep, and I wanted to know what the hell was going on.
Right.
And so they're like, breaking news, 2 girls struck by lightning at Hidden Lake Girl Scout Camp in Lake George, New York, and one has passed, and this one's alive, and there's a wood-burning kit.
Wow.
So they said, Jamie's in intensive care in Glens Falls Hospital and not expected to make it through the night. And I lost it. Like, why am I home? My great-grandmother up, and I'm like, I just watched the news. They said she's not going to make it through the night. You know, I lost my shit. Like, why am I here? Why am I not with my mom and my sister, my dad, my stepdad, and all the family that was at the hospital? So they let me come back, and I got to hold her hand as they pulled the plug. You know, we watched her go out of this world, all of us surrounded by, you know, her bed. So after that, I was raised by broken people, devastated.
Right.
You know, 4th of July, I wasn't allowed out of my mom's sight because that's
when it happened, yeah.
She was struck on the 4th and died on the 6th. And her birthday was on the 28th, and she would have been 13. So I just recently had her childhood best friend at my house, which also named her daughter Jamie after my sister, as I did. And we sat and went through a lot of things. And boy, did she bring back memories of what I don't remember.
Right.
And I brought back memories that she was unaware of. So it just affects so many, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All of us are
a
walking.
ripple effect.
Oh, yes. And how many children were named after my sister? It's mind-blowing. Like, for people to choose her name 20 years later.
Right.
You know, she was magical. She loved everybody she came in touch with. She was kind naturally.
Right.
She was never jealous or handicapped people. She would go to first. So after she passed, a lot of people knew, a lot of people didn't know, but who kept coming to our house was blowing our mind. We lived in a very small white picket fence town. People would knock on our door, is Jamie here? You know, because some people didn't know. And my mom would say, oh, I'm so sorry. And she would have the announcement from her funeral and a picture ready for all the people who kept knocking on the door for her. And they were all from the rec center, mentally handicapped. No, she was down there volunteering with them. She just did it. She didn't have to talk about it, you know? Instead of us out playing with our friends and making little crafts, she was helping the underprivileged and the ones that couldn't keep up. And she was a cool kid in school, you know?
Right.
So she's just left such an impact on me to where now I strive to be more like her as an adult.
Okay.
You know, like my daughter said the other day to me, I was upset. And we are all in family counseling right now. My children are in counseling. I'm in counseling. We're really trying to reprogram how we think.
Right.
Trying to really be more of a positive approach rather than the negative and more, you know, like we all just talked about. So my daughter, I got upset the other day, and she held my hand. She said, Mommy, I see you're upset. Close your eyes. Go back to when you were a little girl before all those bad things happened. And it shocked me because it was like, she doesn't know my story.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But for her to know that, articulate it, hold my hand, use words, I'm healing just because I know I'm doing a good job through them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
And I'm learning with them. And I tell them this, like, you guys are so brilliant that you're taking all this information in, and how lucky are we to be able to have this, number one, because we can afford this. A lot of people, it's a lot of money to have 4 people in therapy.
Right.
Yes. It's an investment. Better than college, if you ask me.
Yes.
But so I just am raising children from a broken childhood myself.
Right.
And now I'm finding myself, why did I end up here? Why am I still the people pleaser? Why am I still
the savior?
The
I feel
savior.
like you like to save.
Oh, I love to
Yeah.
see people happy. Like, and it makes me happy to help facilitate it, I guess, or help them understand or be heard. Like that's probably one of my favorite things to do, is to listen to people's story, because everybody wants to be heard.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm learning now how to let people be heard. Just recently, I've been learning what I do is I do a lot of, during my hair years, I did a lot of toxic positivity. Like, oh, well, people have it worse.
Right.
Or it'll get better.
Right.
Or, look on the bright side.
Yeah.
Right.
That was how I was reared.
Right.
Because the
yes.
opposite was death, or it's over today. And
Right. Well, that's that sympathy versus empathy. It's like you're silver lining it so you don't have to feel the pain.
yeah.
Makes sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because who wants to feel that?
Right.
So I'm just excited right now that I have, that I'm recognizing it and I'm teaching it. And it's never too late to accept responsibility and grow.
Yes.
However, I haven't been a bad person.
Right.
I don't have that in me where I feel I've done people wrong.
Right.
Sure, in my marriage, do I wish I could have responded more eloquently instead of pointing the finger or you, and instead of me just walking away and not engaging, you know? Like I'm finally learning that even though they're monkeys, they're my monkeys. They don't need to be my circus. Like I can let them be monkeys on their own and play and walk away.
Right.
To hear more amazing female warrior stories, hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. We would truly appreciate the love. Now back to our show.
So I think it all stems back to our childhood and how my mom responded to all that and how she helped me cope.
Right.
And what she did was, in today's world, it would be called a helicopter mom.
Right.
But I'm also a 70s baby and we didn't have parenting.
Right.
So to be a helicopter mom back then was I wasn't allowed out of her sight during big events,
Right.
Other than that, I started cooking in the 3rd grade. I was a latchkey kid. I didn't have parenting. It was, I could take care of the house and myself.
Yes. Well, that's...
I can attest to that. It's like you were just born mature. Like you were just born.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
If you wanted to eat, you had to cook something.
You were just born with the capability of doing things on your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for sharing that. And, when we started this out, that's where I was kind of saying, like, where we are in the therapeutic world is we do have those tools now. And so why it's so key to go back and look at that childhood is I always go back. Well, there are a couple of things. It's one, 90% of our brain is our subconscious. So I can sit here in my conscious mind and say, okay, I'm good. And then it can be a song, it can be a date, it can be what happens is if you think about these dominoes lined up and you haven't dealt with that trauma, it's a tap and you fall back to that and then you revert back. That's your trigger.
That's a great visual for me.
Yeah, that is.
Yes, that you stay. And then it takes a day or more
to set it all back up.
Right. And so that's kind of called self-abandoning. And so it's like, if you look at, so I always, tell my clients, I'm like, okay, well, what are you grateful for? We all say health, all that. And I said, I want you to really be grateful for choice. Because it's your choice on how you choose to behave and how to speak to yourself and how to speak to others. And so if you haven't dealt with that childhood hurt and disappointments and different things like that, then you're going to get triggered. And you're going to go into, like you were saying, that fight or flight, and you start talking because you're wanting your voice to be heard or you don't want to feel the pain versus, I call it the catch shift. It's like catch, that hurt and shift, and it's right now. I say we're either living like in love or fear. And that fear is you're thinking about the past or you're going into the future. And then love is just the present moment. It's like, look at the tree in front of you and appreciate the tree. However, you do have to do that work. And I love, because what I hear you saying, because it's kind of my story too, is when I look back and, from my upbringing, my mom's intention, my mom and dad's intention, the school's intention, I think was to help me grow, However, the tools that they were using they weren't the right tools.
Yeah.
But they were severely outdated and broken.
Yes.
Exactly.
I
But
love
what
how
they
you
bel-
say that.
What they believed they were doing was the right thing.
Correct.
And it was this group thinking. And it was like, I remember you were to be spanked and go get the belt and all of that
Not
stuff.
to be
And
heard.
right. Children are to be seen and not heard, not to wear white after Labor Day, like all the shoulds.
Yeah.
So I think if you go back and you're like, okay, well, their intention was to do the right thing. And I liken it. So like I said, I have a 22-year-old, and I remember when he was 3, I would give him soft drinks and say, here's juice. Okay. Like if I told like a mom today that has like a 3-year-old, she'd be like, you were giving your child soft drinks? I'd be like, yes, that's why he's got some cavities. You know?
My day, Coca-Cola went in bottles.
Because why we do what we do is a belief system.
Yeah.
And so we can change our belief system. Or you have to go back into that subconscious and then train your mind to live in the present. And so that sounds all great. So how do you do that? And it's interesting because so I'll ask you guys this. Do you believe, because what you believe is what you're going to do. So do you believe you can control your first thought?
No, it's your instinct.
Correct. So you can't, so like we're all present here right now. If this chair gives out, I'm going to be like, what the? And I'd be like, this is your fault.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh wait, catch shift. So if you can't, so that fear, if someone hits you, you know, in your car, your first thought's going to be this like explode, fear. So if you can't control your first thought, then what can you control?
How you respond afterwards.
Which is yes, and then
Your second thought.
yeah. So I say then your second.
Yeah.
Then your
Sorry,
third.
Jenna. It's because I've done therapy with her before.
Yes.
We've done a few shows, so I'm like, I remember this. I remember. Yeah.
Well, and then you go back to that first thought, and then it's the second, and then the third, and that's having that kind mind, being able to hold the pain and the joy at the same time, being mindful and staying present.
Yeah.
And so it's
Well, like you said, Britt, like going back when you asked us about frustration and peace, can they go hand in hand? And it can, because your first reaction is going to be, I'm frustrated, but then you catch yourself and it's like, okay, how can I control my emotions right now?
Right.
Instead of wanting to rip someone's head off, what can I do instead of that, you know? So, yeah.
Well, and you did such a great job with your children, knowing to take that time out. No, because I know if I was in that situation, my mind would be like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad mom. I shouldn't have done this. I should have, I would have gone.
That was the past me, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Right. And then you just let it
And
all
a lot
go.
of yelling and
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe you did that. And
I'm a yeller by nature. That's my first go-to.
Me too. That is my first go-to, and I've had to learn.
Well, and so I do this thing that's kind of cheesy because I am a 70s baby and we're kind of cheesy. So do you know what, and you and your son did a fist pump. So you know what a fist pump or a high five is, right? It's like we did something good. So with me and my clients, we will do a high 4 when we catch ourselves shifting to be a self-champion. When we catch ourselves doing something really good, we go high 4 because it triggers in your brain, this is good. And it starts to plant positive seeds. So, and I like to say that we're for generational change because that's really what I feel that this error and what you're doing with your show, which I love, is there's no shame and blame.
No.
This is, intentionality is so key. And it's like, okay, so we were like me with the soft drinks.
Yeah.
Me just owning it and saying to my son, like, you know what? If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have given you all the soft drinks. We would have been drinking water. So that's what we're choosing to do today, you know? And that's just wisdom. That's using that wise mind.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're doing all that. So high 4.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's just important to me to put the work in because I know how much I struggled through my 20s, through my 30s, just getting lost in pleasing others.
Right.
Probably part of why I got into the career I got into, doing hair. I could touch 20 heads a day and they'd walk out feeling fabulous, which made me feel amazing.
Yes.
Not boastful like I'm a badass hairdresser. It came naturally to me, but I thrived more off of, they came in feeling, And they left feeling powerful and happy. And like, that's what
Well, and not just you doing hair, you were a therapist too, because they would sit there and talk about all their problems, and you had to, stand there and listen to all that.
And that's another thing that I think is something that needs to be addressed in our generations and our career paths, is all the people who work with emotions and people all day long. And then you go home to your family and you're drained.
Right.
Because you gave it all to them.
Yes.
And that's what I found myself, was coming home exasperated mentally, physically. I was standing all day. I was the only one providing for my family.
Right.
For many years. So then when I came home, it was
you had
pass
to take
off
over.
the kid. I never got a break.
Right.
I was the one taking to preschool. I had Leonette help me with the kids. My husband was home building a business, and it was 24/7.
Yes.
But you were 24/7 too.
I was 24. I wasn't sleeping.
I was
Right.
When I first met her, I was like, I don't know how she does that. I was exhausted for you.
It's awful. It was
She
awful.
literally did everything.
But
and still does.
my kids would never say it was awful. They're like, those are the best years ever.
Right.
Because you made it.
I made it that way.
Yeah.
I was the one who, Leonette was so gracious. We just met, and she would allow me to pick her kids up because she knew I was the more the merrier type. And the kids would always have fun with me.
Yeah.
They wouldn't come home like, Miss Jenna, da-da-da. They'd be like, can we go again?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm like my mom before my sister passed.
Yes.
That everybody...
Let's have all the children over. Yeah. Let them all.
And my motto has always been the more the better. So I lost my identity in my marriage. I gave away all of what was important to me to keep the house quiet so he could build an empire, to keep the kids busy so they didn't annoy him. I was constantly, I felt like I was treading water.
Right.
And the water was right between my lip and my nose.
Yes.
And every once in a while, I would get rescued by a friend or by James in some situations. And I feel like the water was up to here. And I go, oh, I can live here.
Yeah.
Rather than realizing you shouldn't even be up to your chest in water on a regular basis.
No.
Right?
Correct.
So I punished myself, I guess.
Yes.
And took on all the responsibilities. Because if I wanted it done right, I might as well do it myself.
Yes.
And you're a people pleaser, so you're trying to keep the peace and keep everything in order. Yeah.
But I can't juggle balls.
No.
God, can I juggle people?
Yeah.
Well, and what I liken it to, because when in my situation, I felt like I was that circus act that has all the plates that are spinning. And I was like, I'm spinning all these plates, and they were like expensive plates. So it was, and I was like, oh, and I just one day just said, I'm letting them crash.
Yeah.
Because I'm divorced as well. And I had put so much of my therapist at the time, this was like 15 years ago, said, you're finding your worth and your identity in your marriage and your family. You have to find it within yourself. Ooh. And I was like, what? And then and so that's the catch shift that I talk about a lot, is really shifting in and knowing your value and your worth. Mm-hmm. And, so I'm intentional when I get home. I do things that best serve me. So I do go work out, so I have those things that I make sure. However, in the past, I would just kind of, oh no, and then take care of something else or try to make everything look perfect and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a plate. Take better care of me.
Yes.
And I love, it's my sister, her children gave her a plaque that said, because we grew up in a very clean house, like we had to have our car, like everything was just perfect. And her boys, who are 17 and 18, gave her a plaque and it said, Mom, we'd rather spend time with you than have a clean home.
Aww.
And that's sweet.
That is very sweet. And it's so true.
Isn't that great?
And how that affects you in your adulthood.
Exactly.
Coming from where everything needs to be perfect.
I've had to let go of that myself.
But I think that's one of the blessings, and do y'all feel this way, of being a mother? Because it was when I gave birth to my son that I felt that connection, that I started feeling like something's off. And then our children do teach us so much. Mm-hmm. It's just, our kids give us so many gifts, but that's a big gift that I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Yeah, the whole clean house. I mean, I still have a clean house, but
Yeah. Perfectionism.
I've had to let go of it's okay that the dishes are piled up. Before, I would want to just like pick up all the dishes and just throw them out the walls because like, do you guys not understand that there's a dishwasher right here? Or am I the only one that worries about this? So I've had to let it go, and I feel so much more free. And now that they're older, they help. I'm like, I'm not doing this by myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create independent children so they can go off into the world and know what they're doing. And it's been so much better for my sanity.
Exactly.
And I don't feel any guilt at all taking time for myself.
Yes.
So back when Leonette and I first met, and she was like, how is she doing all of this?
Yeah.
And da-da-da-da-da-da. I was looking at her like, how do you get to do all that?
Yeah.
How do you get to...
Well, I was staying home, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. I shouldn't say that because I love,
It was such a challenging stage
I
of
love
life.
my husband. I love my kids. I really do. But I wanted to be like Jenna. I want to be a career woman. That's what I envisioned myself. I always wanted to be married, and I always wanted to have kids, but I wanted a career first. I wanted to be somebody, and so then when I'm stuck at home with children, I was like, what the hell? Like, this is not what I envisioned for myself.
Right.
So, so you wanted what happened.
So it was funny because what I saw was she was able to be home to care for her children and not have to juggle work and arranging help with kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And having a husband who would sit down. Oh, my gosh. She and her husband used to sit down at night and drink wine and have food, and they would get the kids away. I can remember her many times, like, get away from me. Like, shoo, it's my time.
Yeah.
Right? And I'd be like, how does she do that? Like,
Yes.
it wasn't in me, right?
Because I needed it for my sanity. You didn't see what I was dealing with all day long.
So this goes...
I was like, I'm tired. So it wasn't like...
So it goes back to the
It's like,
picture of
if you guys want a
things.
happy mom, you got to get away from me right now.
Right.
But here's what it is. It always looks beautiful to others. Nobody knew what you were struggling with. You didn't know what I was struggling with.
No.
I remember then the four of us got together, and it was like magic between us as a family.
Yeah.
We always say Jaden picks our best friends. He is such a good
He picked...
judge of people.
Our sons met, and then that's how we became friends.
Oh, I love that.
But you're right. You never know, looking on the outside, how someone's life is. Looking back now, I wish I had a better attitude about it because I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change, having a career versus staying home. I would pick staying home with my kids all day long. So I wish that I could go back and like be more grateful and be more
present.
Yes, present, because it goes by so fast. It really, really, I know people say that, but it is so true.
I always liken
So
it
true.
to a round of golf is 18 holes. And if you're a golfer, you'll get this. But it's like when you make the turn, you're like, you can't go back to the back nine. Like I'm in the front nine. You're not on the back nine. And that's children.
Oh my
it's like
God, I feel like I'm on the back nine right now.
Yes, you're on the back nine. So just appreciate it because each hole is different.
Yeah.
You might have a bogey on one hole, but then you might have a bird, and just enjoy it.
Yes.
And then you'll be able to capture
Yes.
each of those,
Well, and that's what
perspective.
and that's what I'm trying to do now because I wasn't like that a few years ago when they were little. I didn't
Right.
enjoy the moments, but now I'm like, all right,
Yes.
they're 10, let's enjoy 10, and then they're 11, let's enjoy 11. Like, let's just enjoy every stage of life.
Yes.
Instead of the
and-
resentment of
Yes.
this is my life and
Yeah.
I could have and I was
Yeah,
going to.
yeah.
Like I remember there was a lot of what you wanted at that
Yes,
stage. And
yes.
here I was wanting something different too, but I wouldn't change it for anything either.
Mm-hmm.
What we have done has created a stronger family, I
Yes.
think.
Mm-hmm.
It's created, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Otherwise there's no growth.
Yeah.
Like if we didn't go through those hard times, you took on Jayla when you were overwhelmed. You were such a sweet friend. So I saw you as so strong. And how does she handle all this? Because I'm at work all day and I'm exasperated with the few hours I'm with them. What I didn't see, I was only exasperated because I was so exhausted from work.
Yeah.
So I think it was people come into your life for reasons, they're blessings, whatever they are, angels.
Yes.
We have grown tremendously since the first day we
We're
met.
different people.
Totally
We're definitely
different people.
Yeah.
And I've
love
loved her
that.
through every stage of life because it's helped me grow.
Yes.
And I know for sure I have helped her grow.
Yes.
Because we went through some difficult times too.
Right.
But the real true people who understand growth and forgiveness and compassion and empathy will be there for you on the other side of it.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and I liken it to, community is so key. If we go back to our culture now, it's like we communicate in a box, we drive in a box, we live in a box. Everything's
all
in a box,
self-serving.
and we're not in boxes.
Yeah.
Like we're created for connection. So I love, so if people are feeling, sad, try to have that community, try to reach out to someone, there's friendships.
And you
That's
never know who
life.
you're inspiring when you think you're struggling.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Through my struggles, I inspired. Through her struggles, she inspired.
Yes.
So I think another great thing that I've learned through probably childhood trauma and talking about all this now is I don't have to suffer.
Correct.
I don't have to suffer. It's not just because I've had to my whole childhood doesn't mean that I have to do this till the day I die.
Exactly.
Right.
And I just felt that was my makeup. This is who I am.
Yes.
Take it or leave it. I'm loud. I'm a New Yorker, just defending all my anger and hurt.
Yes. So I'll ask you this because I ask this question a lot. So I say it's like you have the next chapter. So I know a lot of times in my life, because people would say, Britt, you're stuck in the past. And they say, okay, we're going to a movie. So I can either get the show that's Bridgette in her past, or I can buy the ticket for Bridgette now.
Yeah.
And the past is the lead character in Bridgette in her past.
Yeah.
And Bridgette now, it's like, this is a new day. It's unfolding in front of me.
Yeah.
And let it, just take another, you have your jacket. It's like, take it off and put it there.
Yes.
And then just get in your swim lane.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny you say that because anytime I do get kind of stuck thinking about the past, that's what I envision. I envision taking it and just putting it to the side.
Yes, if you actually take your jacket off and drop it.
I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah. It's like,
Because it helps. It helps. It's like, let it go, Lena.
Yes.
It's a new day. You're a different
Perspective.
person. You can change. You can be different. You can do differently. And so,
Yes.
it's been huge. So, Britt, before we leave, do you have any closing remarks, anything that you can give the listeners to take with them if they've had some trauma in their lives? Something that they can work on, heal from it.
Yeah, to heal from it is to, just take the time to journal. Take the time and ask yourself, what do I believe this event meant to me? What did I learn from it? What have I maybe not dealt with? And then how can I take that in and see it from a perspective of compassion and strength? Just to have that really, just that intentionality to take the time. And like I said, double click on what do I believe this means? And I had to do that with my divorce. What did I believe that meant? And it was I realized I was showing up as the rescuer. And so in my relationships moving forward, I am a self-champ. I do take care of myself. And so that was that was the reason why my relationship failed from my perspective. And then just stay in your swim lane. It's a beautiful life.
Yes.
And we can all grow and get better and be healthier and happier.
Yes. And your thoughts, train those second thoughts, get that muscle. And I always say, have a kind mind, because that first thought's going to be judgment and doubt and fear. And that second thought's going to be, okay, I can do this. When I fall, I can get back up. These are my friends I can turn to. These are my coping mechanisms. So, I always think it's so interesting. They tell us to brush our teeth every day and floss and go to the dentist. However, they don't tell us to take care of our thoughts.
Yeah.
And you can choose your thoughts. And so that would be another thing to do.
Well, thank you, Britt.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jenna.
You're welcome.
I can't wait
Thank
to
you for
have
sharing
more
that.
conversations.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jenna.
Your beautiful soul.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, your eyes just sparkle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
We'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye. Our quote of the week was shared on my Facebook page, Virago 24/7, by Heather Parton. And the quote is, "Your decisions determine the story of your life." Thank you
you so much for listening to Virago 24/7. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and please give us 5-star ratings. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Virago24_7 and on Facebook at Virago24/7. And just connect with us and share your story. We'd love to hear from you.